it's always a joy to be here. It's a blessing. And Diane, wow. I never expect, but I always see the perfection and the synchronicity, and especially in regard to Circle of Miracles. There couldn't have been a finer, deeper, more beautiful introduction to anything I have to share than what you just did. Oh my gosh. And I love your beautiful faces, and I love your beautiful virtual faces. And thank you for sharing with me. And what ultimately I'm about today, and what we're about, is what's behind all those faces and what's behind all of our experiences, and that which nothing else is behind: consciousness itself. And the way we enter into that is through our humanness, because that's our everyday experience. And I want to say that equanimity is something that is a paradox, where if we look at it as a thing and then we go seek to find it, and we find that we're not doing so great, it ends up being the opposite of equanimity. If we're looking for security and stability and the changeless, somehow in the world, it's a setup for suffering, because neither the world or this person is ever really stable. That's not what humanity is about, and that's not what the world is about. So it ends up being that if we look for security in the world, or we look for it in our thoughts and feelings, we feel insecure because it's not happening. This personhood, I just might as well speak for myself. I've had all sorts of personhoods. And what Mike was sharing is, every day you wake up, you are a different person, whether small or large. And that's certainly been true for me. I want to share two life experiences with you, because what they have in common is really deep and beautiful for sharing with all of you today. And I've shared them before here at Circle. One of my 6 kids, my firstborn, Timothy, was born Tiny Tim at 3 pounds. As a preemie in 1980, 3 pounds was small. And he was, according to the doctors, right on the life and death line, what they called viability. Never liked the word at the time. And I was a first, that was my first. So I'm a new dad. And that was so far beyond what I could deal with, where I could help, where I could serve, that I went to a place where I just went, help. God help me. And I woke up the next morning and I was a different person. That surrender, where there was no other choice but to find something stronger and deeper and wiser than where I was, so that I could be a dad to my 3-pounder and a husband to my wife who was experiencing great suffering. And I felt freedom and unconditional love, Diane, like I had never felt before. And it was so strange that the circumstances hadn't changed, and for some weeks would not change. But I could not deny the space that had opened up inside me. But why would I want to? But I couldn't understand it. Jesus described it as the peace that surpasses all understanding. And there was a stillness there too. And he also said, be still. No, I am. And I was confused, but I had this new depth and new strength. And that, in retrospect, was kind of a spiritual honeymoon. I felt so good that I felt like, oh my gosh, do I need to eat? Do I need to? I mean, I felt so full. And so, but here was this child. And so there was, life moved on. Years and years later, and after many years of a happy marriage, my sweet former mate found that a very deep element of her incarnation was gay. And we spent some time together with it. And I'd known her since I was 14, 13. And so when we separated in great love, unconditional love. And it was hard for my children, and it was hard for me, and it was hard for Grace. But there was that experience again. I had a couple-year experience of a deep romantic relationship that ended with like a slap in the face, a real painful finish. And I look back at that, and I look at it inside me now with tremendous gratitude for this soul and tremendous love. But in that pain of separation was the same pain when Tim was born. Something happened. And let me try to describe it in words, because it can't really be described, but I'll try. It's fun to try. When we have a hole in our sense of self that is new and hard, I experienced it as an emptiness, as an unknown, and there was fear involved in what it was, but something was drawing me into it, and that was even more fearful. When Tim was born, there wasn't any choice, and there was, please help. And that surrender was beautiful. And then this new hole was also a part of my sense of self that had just died. And there was this emptiness. And who wants to walk into that? The person does not want to walk into that. But I did. And as I walked in with that surrender, there was an equal light. There was an equal sense of peace to the pain that the person was feeling. In other words, the fullness of our being, anything and everything we could possibly want as a person, was in there. But the person couldn't see it. The person saw it as, oh my gosh. And of course, to an ego, that's death. But when we openly allow, when we accept, and when we embrace that emptiness, that's where my words will fail to describe how amazing, how awesome, how beautiful. Diane did a pretty good job describing. That's why I just thought that was just so awesome. So awesome. So let's look at this. Equanimity to a person was inside a hole that was created when a part of the sense of self, let me describe what parts died. A romantic, an idealist. Here's one, a rescuer. Now, I didn't know these were part of my personhood, but they were really big parts. And when they died, it felt crappy. It was really hard. But the beauty, the freedom of what we are behind that, that can be, it's not achieved, it's rediscovered. It rises into dominance as consciousness, as pure awareness, as stillness, as the ground of being that is behind everything and all the circumstances of everyday life and behind our personhood. So from this space, and now I was attracted to studying mindfulness. I probably wouldn't have been. Now I'm serving children and adults with this. It's all a part of the synchronicity. It's all a part of the whole. I had a friend and teacher, Swami Shantanan, who would say, consider the whole. I'd say, do you always know you were going to be a spiritual teacher? He said, then I felt like that student who walks with the Zen master and asks some stupid question. You know, he just was very quiet for a while, and he said, Peter, consider the whole. There is a seamless, boundless, infinite, perfectly united whole. That's why it's called a universe. And we can't ever understand it cognitively, and we can never achieve it. Why would we need to? Because we are it. And the experience of that is every time you are fully engaged in anything, when time disappears, because you as a person disappear, when you are completely present. And you can, when you use words like I'm trying to use here, it sounds either confusing or it sounds impossible. There's a lot of doubt thoughts that come up when I discuss what mindfulness is about to someone who doesn't know. But to choose to be present becomes easier and easier when we get so much joy and we realize the joy that we've always experienced when we are in this moment. And this space is an identity that replaces personhood as an identity. This space, and doesn't have to be 100%. Because when you're sitting at the end of an Italian meal with tiramisu, and you're sitting eating that dessert, and you are fully present with the dessert, or when you're sitting with a good friend and you know being is just being. There's no pretense. There's no need for personhood. There's no need for ego at all, because there's just pure love there with a mate, with a family, with a friend, and then you are fully present. In that space, did you ever notice that time completely disappears? Oh my gosh, we've been here for 4 hours. Is that possible? And then you realize that there is no greater joy. And you may also realize that that is your true nature, just to be. I chose the Cat Stevens song because that character that he sings about is just, he doesn't house a past because he's just present. He just feels at home with his being, and he just wants to share that. Our being is free. You may experience from that place, oh, my mind is disturbing my person. It's a fun thing to say. You may notice, wow, my mind is really stirring up my person today. I have to share with you, I discovered on YouTube, I've enjoyed Eckhart Tolle there for years now. There's a Jamaican-born mystic named Mooji, Mooji. Highly recommend tuning in, some talks on YouTube by Muji. And he speaks about allowing stillness, like Eckhart, allowing stillness just to fall on you or rise from you. And the wisdom that's there, and the freedom that's there, and the healing to your personhood that's there. Once again, my words don't begin to cut it, but your own experience, the direct experience, living it, that's where it's at. And so when my dad died, I thought, you know, it had been such a graceful process that I had grieved, and, you know, I just felt okay. And then 5 days later, I realized that for those 5 days, there was just this stomach ache, but it wasn't related to anything. I had no other symptoms. And I just decided, no, I knew I needed to sit in stillness. And I sat. And I remember this vividly. I felt the energy come up. It came right up when I was in that space. And I cried for half an hour. Such a really good cry. One of those that you just don't forget. How beautiful. It felt so cathartic, such a release, because I hadn't fully grieved. I thought I did. I assumed I did. I expected that I did, but I hadn't. And so that kind of wisdom, when you have what your mind considers a problem, or you have something, you don't know how you feel about something, or you know you're confused, there we are, that you can just sit and be and see how wise you are from that space. And then you just become more and more coming from the space that can see your personhood, that can be compassionate to your own conditioning and your life experiences. Just understanding, not like self-pity, self-aware. So you begin to identify more with the awareness. I know that Dara is beginning more and more experiencing that from the awareness behind everything. Mindfulness is actually being aware of being aware, because you're choosing from pure awareness to see what's happening in your external environment with awakeness, and to see how your thoughts and feelings are, so you can be with them, so you can do what's needed. And you also see in others what is needed. At any given moment, you can say, am I here now? It's a trick question, because you have to be coming from awareness to ask it. It means, can I come back? And the answer is yes. Come back 1,000 times to being present without any judgment, without any reactivity, because that's just more mental noise. Come back 1,000 times in the same way you do when you meditate and your thoughts are taking you away. But come back without splitting yourself in two and having any self-judgment. Oh, I've been doing this practice for how long and I keep getting pulled away. None of that. Because the you that you are, that never changes, can't be lost. It doesn't exist in time. And it is what is real. Everything else is in time. But the you that you are, pure awareness, consciousness, you just keep coming back, and then it becomes more and more dominant as your reality, as your true identity. It helps to have a yearning for it, but not a yearning as in, I must achieve something. It's more like allowing, accepting. It's more like Diane. Because then whatever's covering becomes easier to drop, or it drops on its own. And I thank you for your attention. It's beautiful. And what we are, my favorite quote is from Saint-Exupéry, from The Little Prince. And it is, if I can think of it in this moment, what is essential, our essence. What is essential is invisible to the eye. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. So we, all of us here, really are invisible. We have these bodies and personalities and these conditioned ways of thinking and being, but the being, the ground of being, pure consciousness is invisible and invulnerable and boundless and eternal. It's always now. And thank you again.